Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Starting to get I started to double check that I was in the correct meeting.
Find out what's going on here. So dumb.
I can hear you.
This is working. This
I
is
can
the
hear you.
worst. Sometimes
I,
it just doesn't want to go.
I can still hear you.
Um, I didn't give an option to check anything either. How do I fix it? That speaker microphone. I shall return.
Okay.
I know the speaker. That's testing.
I can sort of hear you, but
Testing.
you're very far away.
Testing. 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 All right,
Yep,
put it back.
I can hear you.
Hi, Rachel.
Hey, how are you?
Good. Oh, I love your bookcases.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
You've done a lot of reading.
Yeah. Oh, we have more in the living room.
Oh, you have more in the living room. Wow.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, thank Chris. He sent me some notes on the work that he's doing.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And I'll tell you what, that is such a neat project that he's working on.
Yeah. Yeah. He should be here. He was just on and he's trying to work out some technical problems, so
Yeah, well, I
hopefully he'll
can
be back.
imagine he's got a bunch of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I didn't realize how extensive that was, but those things living in the area that we do, um, and being around small, how should I say, small rural communities, because where we are is all small rural communities,
Yeah.
and how important water is and the quality of water and what takes place and all that. So what he does is really important.
Yeah.
And with his expertise, wow. I know you miss him,
Yep.
but that day too will come to an end.
I think so. I think this is his last week in Asheville, and then
Um,
he'll be home for a couple weeks and then he'll travel again. But yeah.
Oh, and I see your tractor parked out behind your house.
Oh, yeah. We're
See,
always moving stuff around.
you're living the life that I always had hoped that maybe one day I could get close to. This
Oh,
is as
well.
close as I'll get here.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Fred, how are you?
Oh, good. Been good. Weather's awful, but otherwise we're fine.
Well, I don't need to tell you about the weather that's crossing
Oh
Texas.
yeah,
Some of it's
yeah,
coming up
Yeah.
here. I mean, this is the most
yeah,
amazing July I have ever seen.
yeah. Flooding is really rare for Texas, isn't it?
Oh
For
yeah,
instance,
this is
yeah.
really what's gone on in the hill country, which is that area between Austin and San Antonio, just to the west.
Mhm.
That is probably a 150-year kind of event.
Oh,
Wow.
Because in the course of my work, when I was working, I traveled in those areas somewhat. And those creeks, I'm going to call them creeks, they're small rivers, very small. And some of them, they have, large areas that the change in elevation maybe 10, 15 feet. So you can just imagine
Mhm.
a wall of water, in
Yeah.
45 minutes, rising
Ooh,
26 feet. There's
wow.
nothing humanly possible you can do to be prepared for something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
I mean, there's no warning. No, I mean, it's just a deluge.
yeah.
It's really, really tragic. And to see that,
Mhm.
I'm sure you all have seen some of the pictures. It's just, they're awful.
Yeah.
No different than Rachel, the area where you live, on a different scale.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, the area that this flooding's all taking place is a big vacation area. It's a big
Mhm.
area for kids camps. It's, it's got ideal weather and surroundings to do that kind of thing.
Oh,
Anyway, tough times,
yeah.
Yeah.
but you're getting a lot of weather too, huh, Fred?
Well, mainly just heat. I mean, it's just been in the 90s every day. It's just, hard to do anything outside for very long.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm uh, here. Because of the weather circumstances, it's been fairly cool, but generally, yeah,
Mhm.
the afternoons I spend inside.
Yeah.
Do what I have to outside in the afternoon
Yeah.
inside.
Everybody here, they trying to get their yard work done by 10 a.m. and then
Yeah.
you're out for the rest of the day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, Fred, I'll tell you briefly a story about my first exposure to the South. Growing up on the West Coast, everybody in the South was kind of, a little bit backwards
Yeah.
and a little different. Spoke differently, ate different foods, and all that. Anyway, my first exposure was in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and during the winter, God, it was great. Man, I was working full speed, and long come April, boy, that humidity hits. I'm sure you've been around
Mhm.
Winston-Salem. It's probably not a lot different than where you are. That
Yeah.
humidity kicks in, and all of a sudden by noon, my tongue's hanging out a mile.
Yeah.
They walk.
Yeah.
When I got home to Chicago to my wife, I said to her at the time, "Now I know why Southerners have to do everything slowly because
That's true. Yeah.
with the heat and the humidity, you can't
Yeah.
you can't do anything very quickly."
Yeah. And particularly before we had air conditioning, I was a kid and nobody had air conditioning.
Yeah.
Life really just, slipped down a gear during summer.
Oh,
You
yeah.
really just didn't move around much.
Well, and this was a
That's
brand new
true.
plant, so it didn't have any air
Yeah.
conditioning yet. And boy, I'll tell you what, middle of the day, it would be miserable.
Yeah.
But that was my first exposure to the South, really.
Mhm. Okay. Well, I think Sue said she couldn't make it this week, and I think Harold's out of town for a couple
Oh
of
my
weeks
gosh.
too. So
Okay.
I think we're it
Yeah. You
for
want
Okay.
to
this.
just wait until the next week?
Well, no, because next week there'll be another Porsche. Got to keep
Okay.
up with the
Okay, well,
cycle.
let's go.
Okay. And this one's this is the story of Balak, the one we're reading this week. It's probably one of the better known ones. It starts off the first starts off basically on chapter 22 with verse 2 in Numbers. And the first few verses just kind of set up the story. Somebody want to read verses 2 through 6?
2 through 6. I'll jump in.
Mhm.
And Balak, the son of Zippor, saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites. And Moab was in great dread of the people because they were many. Moab was overcome. There were many. Moab was overcome with fear of the people of Israel. And Moab said to the elders of Midian, this horde will now lick up all that is around us as the ox licks up the grass of the field. So Balak, the son of Zippor, who was king of Moab at the time, sent messengers to Balaam, the son of Beor, at Pethor, which is near the river in the land of the people of Ammah, to call him, saying, Behold, a people has come out of Egypt. They cover the face of the earth, and they are dwelling opposite me. Come now, curse this people for me, since they are too mighty for me. Perhaps I shall be able to defeat them and drive them from the land, for I know that he whom you bless is blessed, and him whom you cursed is cursed.
Yeah. So basically, in the previous parsha, the Israelites had defeated, I think, Og, the king of Bashan, and I forget the name of the king of Heshbon, but a bunch of the Amorite kings. And so basically the king of Moab is afraid of them, and he figures a better strategy than fighting them may be cursing them. And again, I think you have to remember, this is a culture in which curses really meant something. There over and over again, the Torah commands the Israelites to avoid witchcraft, avoid sorcery, avoid necromancy, talking of the death and whatnot. And a lot of modern people figure, well, it's all just a scam. You don't want them doing that because there's no validity to any of these things. But actually, the command really seems to be because they are effective, but you shouldn't be doing them. You should be relying on God instead. A good example is in the book of Samuel. There's an episode where Saul has got a battle with the Philistines coming up, and he's really worried about what's going to happen. And so he goes to a little village called Endor, where there's an old woman, a witch there, who supposedly can talk to the dead. And she actually, brings up the spirit of Samuel, who tells him, it's not going to go well for you. So apparently the biblical writers did believe, in this kind of stuff. And and the cursing really would have an effect if the right person, pronounced the right kind of curse. For instance, there's a law that's repeated several times that he who curses his parents shall be put to death. We think of cursing your parents. This is some teenager mouthing off to their mother or father, but that's
Mhm.
not what they mean. I mean, they thought cursing your parents might very well bring on their early death. They really believe in the power of curses. And so apparently there were some people who were better at doing this than others. And Balaam has this reputation in the Middle East. If you want somebody cursed, he's the guy to do it. The king of Moab, goes to him, to try to enlist him with this. Um,
Fred, to
yeah,
me, this is even a bigger picture of the movement towards monotheism from all of these other kinds of gods and supernatural spirits and events and what have you.
mhm,
And then when I was reading this, I was thinking this paints that kind of picture that this, it's not like turning one page and all of a sudden you're into monotheism.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's a change over a long period of time.
Yeah, this was a time when most of the Israelites, probably everybody, really believed in sorcery and witchcraft,
Yeah,
that people,
yeah.
could kill someone by cursing them and whatnot. And, there are cultures that believe that even today. So, this was a serious business. He was willing to spend a lot of money and send people, miles away. The river they're talking about is the Euphrates. So you assume that Bilam is living somewhere in Iraq. Moab is approximately would be southern Jordan on a modern map. So this is, he's sending people hundreds of miles into what is now Iraq, to try to get Bilam to come back to Moab and do this. So,
Hmm.
he really must have had a pretty good reputation. Balak's willing to spend a lot of money on this.
Yeah.
And then his reaction, the next part is verses 7 through 20. Rachel, if you want to read that.
Sure. The elders of Moab and the elders of Midian, versed in divination, set out. They came to Bilam and gave him Balak's message. He said to them, "Spend the night here, and I shall reply to you as the Lord may instruct me." So the Moabite dignitaries stayed with Bilam. God came to Bilam and said, "What do these men want of you?" Balaam said to God, "Balak, king of Zippor, king of Moab, sent me this message. Here is a people that came out from Egypt and hides the earth from view. Come now and curse them for me. Perhaps I can engage them in battle and drive them off." But God said to Balaam, "Do not go with them. You must not curse that people, for they are blessed." Bilam arose in the morning and said to Balak's dignitaries, "Go back to your own country, for the Lord will not let me go with you." The Moabite dignitaries left, and they came to Balak and said, "Bilam refused to come with us." Then Balak sent other dignitaries, more numerous and distinguished than the first. They came to Bilam and said to him, "Thus says Balak, son of Zippor, do not refuse to come to me. I will reward you richly, and I will do anything you ask of me. Only come and damn this people for me." Bilam replied to Balak's officials, "Though Balak were to give me his house full of silver and gold, I could not do anything, big or little, contrary to the command of my God the Lord. So you too stay here overnight, and let me find out what else the Lord may say to me." That night God came to Bilam and said to him, "If the agents have come to invite you, you may go with them, but whatever I command you, that you shall do." When he arose in the
Yes.
morning, oh, sorry.
So no, basically that the startling thing about this is really that this is this heathen who has a relationship with the God of Israel. In fact, actually, in the Hebrew text, it uses the name Adonai, um, and which is really kind of strange. I mean, this is this heathen sorcerer who has to get permission from the God of Israel before he can go off to curse Israel. And, and God says, "You can go, but you can't curse them. You can only say what I let you say." He's actually the second one. If you remember way back when the story of Abraham, there's this character Melchizedek, the priest of Salem, who was supposedly a priest of the God Most High. So here's another guy apparently who has a relationship with God, and here Bilam really is the second one the Bible mentions, who's a heathen who has this relation with God. And then the next part really probably is the weirdest part of the whole story, the one most people really remember because it's about the talking ass. But I'll go ahead and read that one because we're shorthanded tonight.
Okay.
Um, he arose in the morning, Bilam saddled his ass, departed with the Moabite dignitaries. But God was incensed at his going, so an angel of the Lord placed himself in the way as an adversary. Um, and again, this is kind of weird to start with. God has just given him permission to go, but now God is angry that he's going. And verse 22 is kind of interesting. My translation reads, "An angel of the Lord placed himself in his way as an adversary." The Hebrew text actually uses the phrase "lasatan lo" to oppose him. And it's the first time the verb sat in the Hebrew Bible. It means really to oppose, although sometimes it means to accuse. And this is really where we get the noun Satan from. And this is really the first mention of it in the Bible, using it as a verb. Um, so he was riding on his she-ass with his two servants alongside. And when the ass caught sight of the angel of the Lord standing in the way with a drawn sword in his hand, the ass swerved off the road and went into the field. And Balaam beat the ass to turn her back into the road. And the angel of the Lord then stationed himself in a lane between the vineyards with a fence on either side. And the ass, seeing the angel of the Lord, pressed herself against the wall and squeezed Balaam's foot against the wall. So he beat her again. Once more, the angel of the Lord moved forward and stationed himself in a spot so narrow there was no room to swerve right or left. And when the ass now saw the angel of the Lord, she lay down under Balaam, and Balaam was furious and beat the ass with his rod. And the Lord opened the ass's mouth, and she said to Balaam, "What have I done to you that you have beaten me these 3 times?" And Balaam said to the ass, "You have made a mockery of me. If I had a sword, I'd kill you." The ass said to Balaam, "Look, I am the ass you have been riding all along until this day. Have I been in the habit of doing thus to you?" And he answered, "No." But you really wonder, he doesn't seem to be surprised at all that his ass is talking to him.
It's talking
Right?
to him.
He just jumps right into the
I was going to
conversation.
say, too many hours in the saddle.
Yeah. Then the Lord uncovered Balaam's eyes, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way, his sword drawn in his hand. Therewith he bowed down right to the ground. And the angel of the Lord said to him, Why have you beaten your ass these 3 times? It is I who came out as an adversary, for this errand is evil to me. And when the ass saw me, she shied away because of me these 3 times. If she had not shied away from me, you were the one I would have killed while sparing her. And Balaam said to the angel of the Lord, I erred because I did not know you were standing in my way. If you still disapprove, I will turn back. But the angel of the Lord said to Balaam, Go with the men, but you must say nothing except what I tell you. So Balaam went with Balak's dignitaries. Now that really is it makes really no sense to me at all. And I've never been able to find any commentaries that really do make sense of it. God gives him permission to go, says, Go with these men. And then you have this whole scene, where the angel is opposing him. But then the angel finally says, Well, go ahead. Um, so, the only explanation I can think of for this whole story is one of these cases where you have 2 different stories, 2 different versions of a story, and they somehow get mixed together with each other. Yeah, I've never been able to understand how this part fits into the whole story.
Would it be consistent to say that, at this time, these were passed on word of mouth from generation to generation and from group to group, and
Mhm.
that the 2 stories both deal with the opposition, but different approaches to the same opposition?
It might be. I think the story of the talking ass might have been a
Yeah,
separate story. They got incorporated into the main story,
yeah,
maybe
yeah,
sometime later. Yeah, it's funny. That's what most people remember about this whole story, though.
yeah.
People who don't remember anything else about this remember the talking ass episode.
Especially good in dealing with kids.
Yeah. Yeah. So then anyway, he gets to Balak's place in Moab, and the first prophecy makes is the first 10 verses on chapter 23. Someone want to
Oh,
read that?
okay. I'll do that.
Okay.
And Balaam said to Balak, Build for me here 7 altars, and prepare for me here 7 bulls and 7 rams. Balak did as Balaam had said, and Balak and Balaam offered on each altar a bull and a ram. And Balaam said to Balak, Stand beside your burnt offering, and I will go. Perhaps the Lord will come to meet me, and whatever he shows me, I will tell you. And he went to a bare height. And God met Balaam, and Balaam said to him, I have arranged the 7 altars, and I have offered on each altar a bull and a ram. And the Lord put a word in Balaam's mouth and said, Return to Balak, and thus you shall speak. And he returned to him, and behold, he and all the princes of Moab were standing beside his burnt offering. And Balaam took up his discourse and said, From Aram Balak what has brought me the king of Moab from the eastern mountains. Come, curse Jacob for me, and come denounce Israel. How can I curse whom God has not cursed? How can I denounce whom the Lord has not denounced? For from the top of the crags I see him, for from the hills I behold him. Behold, a people dwelling alone and not counting itself among the nations. Who can count the dust of Jacob or number of the 4th part of Israel? Let me die the death of the upright, and let me let let my end be like this.
So again, the theme is instead of cursing them, he really he blesses them. But actually, I've always wondered about this that verse 9, where he says, "A people that dwells apart, not reckoned among the nations." When you think about that, it's not really clear whether that's a blessing or a curse.
Mhm.
And actually, I think it may be the most accurate prophecy about the Jewish people that's ever been made by anybody, a people that dwells apart. And the word they use for apart is the Hebrew word vadad, which actually has the connotation of solitary, isolated, cut off, and then not to be reckoned among the nations. In other words, Israel will never be an ordinary nation in a sense. And that's really kind of true. I mean, the way Israel is looked at in the world today, whenever Israel does something like what's going on in Gaza, that a lot of people in the world don't like, the question always come up, should the state of Israel be allowed to exist? Is Israel a legitimate state? And when you think about it, that's never been asked of any other country. I mean, after the Nazi regime, nobody said, does Germany have a right to exist? During Stalin's time, nobody said, does Russia have a right to exist? That's never been said of any other nation, no matter what kind of atrocities it's been involved in. And Israel just has this very unique place in the world. The early Zionists thought that anti-Semitism, one of the problems was that Jews didn't have a country of their own. And, they were scattered through the world. They were looked at as parasites by a lot of the nations they lived in. And as soon as they had their own nation again, it came back to their homeland, then they would just be a normal nation like everybody else. And that would take care of the anti-Semitism problem, which it obviously hasn't. Um, and to me, that verse 9, again, may be the most accurate prophecy anybody has ever made, about the fate of the Jews. Anyway, he comes back and reports to Balak, and then the next prophecy is verses 11 through 30. Rachel, do you want to
Sure.
read that?
Then Balak said to Balaam, "What have you done to me? Here I brought you to damn my enemies, and instead you have blessed them." He replied, "I can only repeat faithfully what the Lord puts in my mouth." Then Balak said to him, "Come with me to another place from which you can see them. You will see only a portion of them. You will not see all of them, and damn them for me from there." With that, he took him to Sedezaphim on the summit of Pisgah. He built 7 altars and offered a bull and a ram on each altar. And Balaam said to Balak, "Stay here beside your offerings while I seek a manifestation yonder." The Lord became manifest to Balaam and put a word in his mouth, saying, "Return to Balak and speak thus." He went to him and found him standing beside his offerings, and the Moabite dignitaries with him. Balak asked him, "What did the Lord say?" And he took up his theme and said, "Up, Balak, attend. Give ear unto me, son of Zippor. God is not human to be capricious, or mortal to have a change of heart. Would God speak and not act, promise and not fulfill? My message was to bless. When God blesses, I cannot reverse it. No harm is in sight for Jacob, no woe in view for Israel. Their God the Lord is with them, and their kings acclaim in their midst. God who freed them from Egypt is for them like the horns of the wild ox. Lo, there is no augury in Jacob, and no divining in Israel. Jacob is told at once, yea, Israel, what God has planned. Lo, a people that rises like a lioness, leaps up like a lion, rests not till it has feasted on prey and drunk the blood of the slain. Thereupon Balak said to Balaam, "Don't curse them, and don't bless them." In reply, Balaam said to Balak, "But I told you, whatever the Lord says, that I must do." Then Balak said to Balaam, "Come now, I will take you to another place. Perhaps God will deem it right that you damn them for me there." Balak took Balaam to the peak of Peor, which overlooks the wasteland. Balaam said to Balak, "Build me here 7 altars, and have 7 bulls and 7 rams ready for me here." Balak did as Balaam said. He offered up a bull and a ram on each altar.
So here you have the second try, which again fails again. There is one interesting verse in there, and that's verse 23, where he says, Lo, there is no augury in Jacob, no divining in Israel. Jacob is told at once, Yea, Israel, what God has planned. In the traditional King James English translation of that, the end of that verse reads, what hath God wrought? And actually, that was picked up by Samuel Morse when he invented a telegraph. You know, his test message, the very first message he sent on the telegraph was, What hath God wrought? You know,
Hmm.
quoting this verse from the Bible. That was the initial telegraph message.
Hmm.
It's an
And
ominous message to send us the first message. I don't
I
know.
know
Yeah.
it is, yeah.
Make something cheerfuler.
Yeah. And then Balak is still not giving up. You know, for some reason, he feels that maybe if he takes him to a different place each time and he looks from a different angle, maybe he'll give a different prophecy. So now, when chapter 24 and the first 9 verses, you know, he tries again. So I'll read that. Now, Bilam, seeing that it pleased God to bless Israel, did not, as on previous occasions, go in search of omens, but turned his face toward the wilderness. And as Bilam looked up and saw Israel encamped, tribe by tribe, the Spirit of God came upon him. Taking up his theme, he said, The word of Bilam, son of Beor, the word of a man whose eyes is opened, the word of him who hears God's speech, who beholds visions of the Almighty, prostrate but with eyes unveiled. How goodly are your tents, O Jacob, your dwellings, O Israel. This, by the way, the later rabbis liked that so much. This has been set to music, and it's actually the hymn that begins the Friday night service in synagogue. It's Ma tovu oholecha mishpanotecha Yisrael. Then he goes on, like palm groves that stretch out, like gardens beside a river, like aloes planted by the Lord. Um, they're like cedars by the water. Their boughs drip with moisture. Their roots have abundant water. Their king shall arise above Agag. Their kingdom shall be exalted. God who freed them from Egypt is for them like the horns of the wild ox. They shall devour enemy nations, crush their bones, and smash their arrows. They crouch and they lie down like a lion, like the king of beasts who dares rouse them. Blessed are they who bless you. Cursed are they who curse you. Which is really repeating. Remember what God told Abraham, you know, way back in Genesis. Those who bless you will be blessed. Those who curse you will be cursed. So now this is the third try, and pretty much the same result. If anything, he praises them now, you know, more than ever. And then the next 15 verses, 10 through 25, is Balak's reaction to all this. John, you want to read that?
Sure. And Balak's anger was kindled against Balaam, and he struck his hands together. And Balak said to Balaam, I called you to curse my enemies, and behold, you have blessed them these 3 times. Therefore, now flee to your own place, I said. I will certainly honor you, but the Lord has held you back from honor. And Balaam said to Balak, Did I not tell your messengers whom you sent to me? If Balak should give me this house full of silver and gold, I should not be able to go beyond the word of the Lord, to do either good or bad of my own will. What the Lord speaks, that will I speak. And now behold, I am going to my people. Come, I will let you know what this people will do to your people in the latter days. This is and he took up his discourse and said, the oracle of Balaam, son of Bor, the oracle of the man whose eyes is opened, the oracle of him who hears the words of the Lord, and knows the knowledge of the Most High, who sees the vision of the Almighty, falling down with his eyes uncovered. I see him, but not now. I behold him, but not near. A star shall come out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel. It shall crush the forehead of Moab and break down all the sons of Seth. Edom shall be dispossessed. Seir also his enemies shall be dispossessed. Israel is doing valiantly, and one from Jacob shall exercise dominion and destroy the survivors of cities. Then he looked on Amalek and took up his discourse and said, Amalek was the first among the nations, but its end is utter destruction. And he looked on the Kenite and took up his discourse and said, enduring is your dwelling place, and your nest is set in the rock. Nevertheless, Cain shall be burned when Ashur takes you away captive. And he took up his discourse and said, alas, who shall live when God does this? But ships shall come from Kittim and shall afflict Ashur and Ebar, and he too shall come to utter destruction. Then Balaam rose and went back to his place, and Balak also went his way.
So the whole mission is really a failure. You kind of wonder what this did to Balaam's reputation in the area after this. As king of Moab spent a fortune on him and got nothing for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is one very significant part of this prophecy. A lot of it's pretty obscure, but verse 17 is really important. Where he says in verse 17, what I see for them is not yet, what I behold will not be soon. A star rises from Jacob. And this actually became very important later on. In the middle of the second century of this era, when the last revolt against Rome began, when there was a rebel leader named Shimon ben Koziba. And one of the leading rabbis, in fact, the leading rabbi of the second century at that time was Rabbi Akiba. And Rabbi Akiba decided that Shimon ben Koziba was actually the fulfillment of this prophecy. He was the star that was going to arise from Jacob. And so he actually renamed him as Shimon bar Kokhba. Kokhab is a star in Hebrew, so the son of a star. And of course, bar Kokhba led this rebellion against the Romans, which ended being crushed and totally ending Jewish life in Judea for the next 19 centuries. That it's probably the Rabbi Akiba, who's probably one of the most respected rabbis of the first few centuries, really probably brought on this disaster, by proclaiming this guy as the Messiah and rechristening him Bar Kokhba and saying that he was the fulfillment of prophecy. But actually, the Moabites had one more trick left. That they didn't want to try war. Trying cursing didn't work out with Bilam, so they played their final card. It's the last small part of this parsha, and it's
Fred, before
yeah.
we move on to that, it says a scepter shall rise out of Israel. And the
Mhm.
scepter is a symbol of royalty and power, right?
Yeah, well, yes, yeah,
So
and of
that
course
is
this,
something there.
Yeah, that could be a prediction of the house of David. Yeah, that
Yes.
could be read that way. Yeah. And of course, there are Christians who read that as the star that's going to shoot out of Jacob, is Jesus. So there are a
Hmm.
number of ways to read the prophecy. Unfortunately, Rabbi Akiba, read it as being Bar Kokhba and led the whole nation into this huge disaster. But the Moabites had one more card to play, and that's over in chapter 25, the last part of the Parsha. And this is just basically the first 9 verses of chapter 25. Actually, I think it's my turn to read, so I'll read it. Um, While Israel was staying at Shittim, the people profaned themselves by whoring with the Moabite women, who
Hmm.
invited the people to the sacrifices for their gods. The people partook of them and worshiped that god. Thus Israel attached itself to Baal Peor, and the Lord was incensed with Israel. And the Lord said to Moses, take all the ringleaders and have them publicly impaled before the Lord, so that the Lord's wrath may turn away from Israel. So Moses said to Israel officials, each of you slay those of his men who attach themselves to the Baal of Peor. Just then, one of the Israelites came and brought a Midianite woman over to his companions in the sight of Moses and of the whole Israelite community, who were weeping at the entrance of the tent of meeting. When Pinhas, the son of Eleazar, son of Aaron the priest, saw this, he left the assembly and took a spear in his hand. He followed the Israelite into the chamber and stabbed both of them, the Israelite and the woman, through the belly. Then the plague against the Israelites was checked, and those who died of the plague numbered 24,000. So, what they apparently did was get their women to seduce the Israelite men. In other words, if you want the sex and the food, you got to worship our God. And apparently, it worked pretty well. There are 24,000 people, who died in the plague that were sent to punish them. And of course, the thing with Pinchas, the son of who's the grandson of Aaron, one of the Israelites actually takes a Moabite woman into the Israelite camp, and this gets Pinchas so angry, that he runs in there with the spear and just sort of skewers both of them. This is the inspiration for all these teenage slasher movies like Nightmare on Elm Street, and Halloween,
Yeah.
where you have scenes like this. But
You're much more worldly than me, Fred.
you never saw those movies,
I
okay?
didn't see any of those.
All right. Yeah. So apparently sex is more effective than cursing or war. At least they got some of the Israelites out of the way that way. So, and next week, the next parsha is Pinchas, which takes up the story of Pinchas after the end of this parsha.
Okay.
So we'll read Pentecost next week. We'll be starting with let's see, with chapter 25 and verse 10 for next week.
Very good.
Hopefully we'll be back to full strength then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we missed Sue too.
Yeah, but she'll be back next week.
Yeah.
I think Harold's gone for 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think he said he was going to be gone
Yeah.
for 2 weeks. Great. Well, you all have a
Okay.
good week and we'll see you
Yep.
next week. Thank
All
you,
right.
See you
Fred.
next
Have a
week.
good week.
Thank you,
Okay.
Rachel.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Give our regards to Chris.
I will. All right. Thanks.